District Convention 2018. Maria, is everybody registered?
Yes, you're ready.
Okay, let's go through some preliminaries. Let's, huh?
Flag, we go on, go to the flag, preliminary.
Okay, can we all stand for the pledge of allegiance? Can you lead out? Pledge? Yeah.
Let me get in front.
Yeah. Come on.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Does anybody here know the state pledge?
Ryan, you know the state?
The LULAC prayer.
Oh,
Ryan knows the state.
did you,
Prayer. The LULAC prayer.
Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee that we may prove ourselves a people mindful of thy favor and glad to do thy will. Bless our land and our honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitude brought hither out of many kindred and tongues. Impue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in thy name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to thy law we may show forth the praise among nations of the earth. In a time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness. In the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in thee to fail. All of which we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay. I'd like to introduce, I'd like to ask our chairperson if he has anything to say. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to say? Okay, I'd like to introduce Joey Cardenas. He's our first guest speaker. ¿Ya está, señor Cardenas?
Right here.
Okay. He is our past state. Yeah. He is our past state director. It's a great honor to have you here today, sir. Could you please?
Thank you, guys. Hey, how's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
Hey, let me tell you something real quickly. So I am Joey Cardenas. I am currently the chairman of the Tejano Democrats, which is a statewide organization specifically for Tejanos, those of us of Mexican-American background. También I'm also the co-chair of the Hispanic Caucus for the Democratic Party as well. As was already mentioned, I am the past state director for Texas LULAC. I'm also the past chairman for Texas Hope, the only Latino strike force organization that exists in the state of Texas, whose purpose was to write legislation. I'm very proud this morning to say to you that I've always had the support of this district when I was in office. And so I appreciate that, and I do want to recognize the leadership of some of the people that are in here. Lee has always been a supporter of mine. Mr. Carrillo has always been a supporter of mine. These are people that from the very beginnings that I can remember when this district was created, were individuals that were progressive and that were forward thinking. You know, and so you have very good leadership amongst yourselves. And I know that there are others here as well that provide leadership. We got Mr. Reyes back there. We got Luis over here on this side, también. But I don't want to forget anyone. But I do want to mention that you are in very well capable hands here in this district. So don't worry about our community here in Fort Worth. Because I know that what is said here today and what is done here today, you're going to go back out and spread in the community. That's the strength of LULAC. That's always been the strength of LULAC. It's membership, not its leadership. It's membership. And because the leaders are you that are in here today. You are the leaders of the Latino community. And I'm very proud that you're here today. And I know that what we do here today will be taken out to the community. I was asked to make a couple of remarks specific to to politics. And so I want to go along those lines. But before I do that, let me tell you that I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for 23 years. I know why you're clapping. You know, as a teacher, I have a very unique perspective on the politics that are going on in the state right now that deals with the education of our students. And I'm here to tell you folks that there is no greater asset to our community than education. That has been true early in the 19th century. It's true now in the 21st century. It's always about education because education is a great equalizer. If there is one way to get ahead economically, socially, politically, it is because of education. And we must ensure that our generation and that the generations that come after us have a quality education. Okay, any time that people start messing with the education of your children or the education of your grandchildren, you should pay very close attention to that. You should be offended by that. In our state constitution, it says that the state of Texas is to create a free public education system. The state of Texas is supposed to fund education 100%. 100%. That's in our state constitution. 5 years ago, it was funding it at only 48%. Does anyone want to guess where the state legislature is today? What that percentage of funding is? We're down to 38%. 38% of public education is funded by the state of Texas. The rest comes from your taxes, from your businesses, from your cities, from your counties. That's where the rest comes from. And if you think we're heading in the right direction, I'm here to tell you we are not. Texas is the second richest state in our union. And yet it ranks 47th in the amount of services that it returns back to its people. You, your children, your grandchildren. This is why you should care about politics. A lot of times people ask me, well, you know, Joey, Latinos come out to vote. And I always tell people, you know what? That's not true. That's a lie. That's not true. 8 years ago, Adrian Garcia in Houston, Texas was running for sheriff. He received more votes than any politician that was running for office at that time in the entire nation. Just as an FYI. When Julian Castro ran for mayor, which by the way I introduced using the wrong name, I don't think about it. My mistake. But when Julian Castro was running for mayor, he was running in a field of 7 candidates. 7 candidates. And everyone said, you know what, we're going to have a runoff. Get ready for a runoff. He won right out. When it matters to Latinos, when they understand what is at stake, they come out and vote. Don't let anyone tell you that Latinos do not come out to vote. They come out to vote. And we see it today in the politics that are going on. Mira, Latinos, we make up 52% of the students in public education. 52%. And now that we're the majority, they want to experiment with charter schools? They want to experiment with voucher programs? I wonder why. Now that we're the majority of the students in public education. Now that we benefit more. They want to do away with the top 10%. The top 10% is a merit-based system whereby any student that graduates in the top 10 of their class, their graduating year, they can choose to go to any public Texas school. They want to do away with that. Why? Because it's our students that are graduating at the top 10% now. We're the ones that are going to UT. We're the ones that are going to A&M. And there are complaints about we're bumping out their students. Who are their students? Legacies. Legacies. You know, those parents that went there and expect their kids to go there also without having to go through the process like everybody else. Again, you should be offended by that. And you should support the top 10%. And don't let people try to tell you, oh no, we need to reduce it. Don't reduce it. If anything, it needs to go up. We need to be going in the other direction so that our students are getting into those schools. Because, you know, people like to say that any university is as good as the next university, and you and I know that that is not true. Certain universities carry a lot more weight than other universities. By the way, I went to Texas State University in San Marcos. It's a great party school. Go Bobcats, right? But I got a good education there. So I'll say that. Let me get back to my script. I saw that you only gave me 30 minutes, and I'm a hell of a talker. So I said, God dang it, I went from this script to this script. Right here. But look, what's that?
We'll give you as long as you need.
No, don't say that. Don't ever say that to me. Look, let me say this. Let me get a little bit more onto my script here. Understand that we are the experts of the Latino community. You know, that seems like a common sense statement, but you would be surprised how many people give what is rightfully ours away. I have been to meetings at the Capitol in Austin where they have a panel, a Senate discussion panel or a House discussion panel, and they're talking about Latinos and the achievement of Latinos and the future of Latinos. And guess what? There are no Latinos on the panel. What the hell? How is that a discussion about Latinos if we are not included in those type of committees? If we're not included in the decision-making process of those committees? And yet it happens. And yet it happens. In the state of Texas, we have what is known as the Latino Coalition Education Task Force, okay, which is made up of myself, a couple of other people, professors from throughout the state of Texas. Do you think that we get invited to those panel discussions? No, we don't. Okay, we have to go, we have to show up before the committees unannounced. We have to go and register, which is fine. We'll go through the process. It's not going to make a difference. Okay, to get our comments on the record. But that's something that still happens even today in 2018. This was happening in 2017 in the last legislative session. You know, the difference is that we're bold. If that's what it takes for us to get our point of view across and to get ourselves on the record, then that's exactly what we're going to do. But it shouldn't be that way. We're the experts on the Latino community. Okay, always remember that. You know more about the Latino community than people who are not Latinos, and do not give that power away. Let me give you a quick little story just to demonstrate that for you. I always tell candidates, when it comes to Latinos, everybody else, when they go to vote in an election, they have two choices. They can either vote for a candidate or they can vote against the candidate. Okay? But Latinos, we have a third option. So you want to know what that third option is? We either vote for a candidate, we vote against the candidate, or we don't go vote. We don't go vote. That's a conscientious decision that Latinos make, not to go vote, not to participate. If they don't think that their vote's going to make a difference, guess what? Are they going to go vote? Most likely not. Okay, if no one reached out to them, are they going to go vote? Absolutely not. If the candidates are not talking about their issues, are they going to go out to vote? Again, they're not. And I hear people say, well, why is that? Why don't Latinos go out and vote? Blacks go out and vote. Other poor people go out and vote. You know as well. Folks, let me remind you that in terms of Latinos coming out to vote, we started late. We started late in the state of Texas. Okay? And it had a lot to do with those voting tests. It had a lot to do with the fact that the state of Texas used to hold elections when? Does anyone know? Elections in the state of Texas used to be on the same weekend as Cinco de Mayo. Knock out the Latinos. You know, their business is somewhere else. Okay, también, I mean, and don't think that those things were done by accident. They were done on purpose. And even today, we still have some elections that occur in May, don't we, in the state of Texas, rather than in November. I mean, African Americans at least had a party. They could count on the Republican Party at that time, anyhow, okay, to support their issues. Latinos never had a party. To the point that Latinos had to make up their own party, the Raza Unida Party, in the state of Texas. Some of you may recall. I'm too young for that. I don't remember that. But you get my point, what I'm trying to tell you. Okay? Don't be part of that narrative. Don't be part of that story that says and continues that falsehood that Latinos don't vote, that Latinos don't participate. Excuse me if we got here late, but it wasn't our fault. You know, excuse me if you don't know my issues, but that's on you. You want my vote? Come talk to me. You want my vote? Know my issues. You know my vote? Improve my community. That's how we have to talk to candidates. And let me tell you this, sometimes candidates don't know any better. We're the experts on the community. I always tell candidates, and it's hard to get them to understand sometimes, it's kind of like the quinceañera. And this is just how Mexicanos are. This is just the way we are, folks. This is just how Tejanos are. It's kind of like the quinceañera. It could be your niece whose quinceañera is about to happen. And if you don't get an invitation, what do? Fregando voy. No me mandaron invitación, ¿para qué voy? We get slighted, don't we? We get our feelings hurt, don't we? It's the same thing with voting. You know, we literally have to, vamos a votar, vete, vamos. You gotta take them, you gotta pick them up. You gotta give them a reason. ¿Cómo con que no vas a votar? ¿Estás loco o qué? No, vamos. You know, take them out to vote with you. This is something that we have to do. Okay? And even though it's amusing, in the state of Texas, it has big repercussions. Let me tell you something about the state of Texas, about the demographics of the state of Texas. 254 counties in the state of Texas, 50% of the population of the state of Texas lives in 8 counties. 50% lives in only 8 counties. Dallas, El Paso, Bexar, Travis, Hidalgo, Harris County, Tarrant County, and I'm forgetting one. What am I forgetting? No. Who said Lubbock? No. No, not West Lubbock. Oh, what the heck? Tarrant, Dallas, Harris, Bexar, El Paso, that's Harris. El Paso, Travis. Ya se me olvidó. Ya se me olvidó. Como quiera. The point is this, that 50% of the state's population, there's a little bit more than 24 million people in the state of Texas. Okay, but 50% live in just those 8 counties. Guess what? 50% of the Latino community in the state of Texas lives in those exact same 8 counties. Those 8 counties today are controlled by the Democratic Party. Okay, all 8 of those counties are controlled by the Democratic Party today. Latinos make a difference. And if you think that the Republicans haven't paid attention to that, let me tell you this. Did you know that in November 2018, this will be the last time in the state of Texas that we can vote straight party ticket in Texas? Do you know why? Because Latinos have increasingly been voting Democrat. And because they have increasingly been voting Democrat, Republicans know that there's no way they can win unless they do away with straight party votes. And that's what they're doing. November 2018 is the last time in Texas, as of right now anyhow, that you will still be able to vote a straight party ticket. Yeah, Republicans know what's going on. They know the gig is up. Okay, they know that as Latinos become empowered, 38% of the population in the state of Texas is Latino. 38%. In the last census cycle, in 2010, 65% of all the growth in the state of Texas was Latino. And don't let them tell you that it was immigration. It was not immigration. Immigration was only 3% of that growth. The rest was us, people from the state of Texas that are becoming increasingly involved in the process también. Okay, so keep that in mind. We were the only state to gain four congressional seats. Why is that important? Because that's the number of electoral votes that the state of Texas gets in a presidential election. Right now, Texas gets 38 electoral votes. We're behind only California in the number of electoral votes that we get. Folks, let me tell you this. If the state of Texas goes purple or if the state of Texas goes blue, there will never be another Republican president. Okay, they just cannot win because they don't have the numbers. Okay, in 2020, with the census coming up, the state of Texas is expected to get another 3 congressional seats in the state of Texas. Okay, and that's good for the state of Texas, that's good for you, but only if we come out to vote. Let me tell you this, when I was state director of Texas LULAC, I didn't do anything to register anyone to vote. And now that I am chairman of the Tejano Democrats, I don't do anything to register anyone to vote. Okay? Because, folks, in my opinion, we've got to get people out to vote. If we get just those that are already registered to vote out to vote, we'll do okay. There are plenty of organizations that are registering people to vote. There are counselors that, by law, by the way, are supposed to be registering students in high schools to vote as well. Okay, why should we be doing their job? Let them do their job. Go file a complaint against the school district if you know any senior that has graduated and is not registered to vote, because it is in the law. That is in the law. Okay, they are breaking a law. Okay, you let them know about that. Second thing I want to mention to you is, so when I was telling you about the population in the state of Texas being in only those 8 counties, well, one of the things that we have to remember is that there are a lot of Latinos in rural counties también. Sometimes the rural counties don't get service. 2 years ago, I was here in Dallas at the Latino Redistricting Summit. También this year, those summits are going to be going to cities that are not as big as Dallas and Fort Worth, but that are smaller, so that we start doing that outreach to those rural communities that need our help. We cannot forget those rural communities. When we went to go do our legislative summit in Lubbock, Texas, we got a lot of pushback from the Latinos living in those small communities over in Lubbock, Texas, over in West Texas. And if you think there aren't Latinos in West Texas, you don't know West Texas. There's a lot of Latinos in West Texas, but they don't have access. Okay, and that's where people like you come in, because I know that we all have connections to West Texas in one way or the other. Redistricting, you already know, is coming up. Right now, we are in the lawsuits in redistricting. Last week, you know that the case was being heard in Washington, D.C. It is extraordinary. If you don't follow redistricting, you should, only because it is so extraordinary that the courts themselves have said that the state of Texas intentionally discriminated against Latinos. They didn't say that they intended to discriminate. They didn't say that they might be discriminating. They said that the state of Texas intentionally discriminated in the writing of those lines, in the drawing of those lines. Isn't that amazing? That's how scared they are of our community. The other side of that coin is, that's how good a job we're doing. Yeah. They know what's happening. They know what's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Okay, the only thing we have to worry about is, how soon do we want that change? How soon do we want that empowerment for our community? That's the only thing we've got to decide. It's going to happen, but is it going to happen sooner or later? Is it going to happen with our generation, or are we going to leave it to our children's generation? Or maybe even their grandchildren's generation? Because it can be now. We have the numbers now. We have the knowledge and the education now. We can do this. Look, Roman Romero sitting here next to me, he's proof of this. He's one of those individuals that benefited from those redistricting lawsuits that are filed almost every 10 years, because every 10 years we do not get a fair shake in the legislative process which draws those district lines. We do not. I already told you that last legislative session, we got 3 congressional districts. how many were Latino? They should have all been Latino. The population of Latinos in the state of Texas is 9.8 million. 9.8 million Latinos in the state of Texas. Do you know that that is larger than the population of every state in our union except for 6 states? The population of Latinos alone in the state of Texas is larger than the population of all your other states except for 6 states. Michigan and Ohio have populations almost equal to the population of Latinos in the state of Texas. And they have 14 and 16 congressional representatives in those states that they can elect. Do you know how many Latinos we can elect, potentially elect, in the state of Texas for Congress? There aren't but 6. There aren't but 6. But we're making gains. Sylvia Garcia in Houston will become the first Latina from the state of Texas to serve in Congress. El Paso too, I was about to bring her up too. Okay? As well as El Paso, también. But those are achievements of our community. That's proof that the community is going in the right direction. But we have a lot to do. Okay? And don't think that at the very time that we're making these achievements politically, that our education system is not being gutted. There's a reason why our education system is being gutted. There's a reason why we have experimentation going on in our education system with charter schools and voucher schools. There's a reason why now we have tracks in public schools. How many of you went to public schools where they have vocational programs? You know, no. You go to auto mechanics. You're not college material. You go to sewing. You're looking for secretary. You know, is that what's good? We're back to that. We're back to that. We're back to those vocational programs. We're back to those tracking programs también. You know, and I see Mexicanos at the Capitol saying, well, you know, not all kids want to go to college. Well, that's fine. They may not want to go to college now. You know that they have to select their graduating plan as freshmen? As freshmen? Folks, I've been a teacher long enough to know that don't ask a freshman what he wants to do 4 or 5 years from now, because he's not thinking like that. You know, their parents might not have graduated high school. Their parents might not have gone to college. Okay? They need that to be said. You know what? Technically, the state of Texas said that the counselors at the high schools are supposed to have interviews with freshman students and their parents to set that course, to begin setting that course. You know what we have discovered? You know what we have found? That they get them all together in an orientation, a freshman orientation, with all the parents in freshman orientation. They give them an explanation, they hand out the forms, and say, sign it. Bonus. That's exactly what they do. They defeat the very purpose of why that language was included in those bills. Language that we wanted. It is no accident that our education system in the state of Texas is being underfunded at the very moment that Latino students make up the majority in public education. También. Okay, don't fall for the gimmicks. I know that charter schools are popular sometimes. I know that they seem like a solution. I know that sometimes they outperform public schools, but they do not do it. They do not do it consistently. Okay, and if you look at the good studies that have been done on the performance of those schools, you're going to find that they have not been consistent. All you have to do is look at the charter schools in Dallas County. I know all of you remember when they were shut down and taken over by the state, también. Okay? Don't take my word for it. Do the research in it. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time because I know y'all have another guest here. But look, let me just say this in closing to you. It's important that we continue being involved in politics. And I'm talking about school boards, I'm talking about city councils, and I'm talking about commissioners. We got to get involved in those areas. Precinct chairs. I believe I have a couple of precinct chairs here. You know, no one wants to run for precinct chairs. No one runs for precinct chairs on ballots. It's the easiest election you will ever win. And there's a lot of work to be done as precinct chairs, because these are the people that know the communities, that know the barrios, know how to pull people out. When Leticia Vanderpew, when she was senator, decided she was going to run for mayor in San Antonio, she should have won, hands down, right on, in San Antonio, but she didn't. Okay, one of the reasons that she lost was that in the heavily Latino areas of San Antonio, which is West San Antonio and South San Antonio, there were no precinct chairs there. There were no people in the community in El Barrio to do the work, to say, ¿sabes qué? I'll get my street together. I'll do the block walking for you. You know, candidates, they can do a lot themselves. But if they don't have the support of the community, if they don't have your support, and if you're not involved, and if you're not educated on what the issues are, then folks, we're not doing our job. We're not meeting our responsibility to our students and to the future generations that we have también. So let me leave you by giving you this. Mira, it comes down to economics. You know, people always say, well, what's it going to take to get Latinos out? It's economics. That's all it is. It's economics. What are you going to do to improve my condition? What are you going to do to improve my children's condition, my grandchildren's condition? It's about economics. It's as simple as that. Where are the economics in this process? There's a little acronym that's going around that's called SOCCER. You know are good at soccer, right? But it stands for security, opportunity, compassion, and results. Okay? Talk to the Latino community, address those 4 issues, and you have our support. Okay? That's what candidates need to hear from you. Okay? You're the experts. Don't give that away. Okay? Thank you very much, folks.
Great presentation. I will tell you that there's 2 questions here today, and I feel compelled to say something about it. The question, ultimately, is economics. Everybody in here, I know a bunch of y'all, we're not all the same mindset, I'm sorry to say, but, okay. But if you compare the amount of money an air conditioning technician, compare that to a school teacher. My daughter's a school teacher. My son-in-law is an air conditioning technician. He makes $200,000 a year. You know how much my college-educated daughter makes? $52,000 a year. So if the question is economics, let's not disconnect our brain, okay? Thank you. Hector, did you have something to say?
No, I just had a quick question for Joy.
Okay.
Before he leaves.
And we're going to wait for questions after the 3 speak.
Yeah.
We can. We're going to have Romero, and then we're going to have Domingo Garcia, and then we're going to have questions for the 3 if we can.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
Okay.
Okay. We all know Ramon Romero. He is our state representative. In my opinion, he's done a fine job. So it's with great honor to me, I'd like to present Ramon.
Thank you guys for having me today. I feel like I'm looking out into the, yes?
Can you speak louder, please?
Yes, I'll speak really loud for you. Look, I look around here and the reality is,
Step over there.
yeah, well, I think he wants me in front of this.
Yeah, right.
The reality is a whole lot of you guys were working on my campaign. I mean, I look around this room and you guys believed, just as I did, that it was time, right? That we'd had enough, and that at least we had somebody that, and I hope you still feel that way, that lived your life. Maybe my kids were living your kids' life, and we have a whole lot in common, and that our previous representation doesn't really have a whole lot in common with us, or that the representation we have in Austin as a whole just really doesn't know our community. And I think that that's why Joey, and a lot of what he talked about, is absolutely right, in that without more Latinos like us that have our life experiences, that are experiencing what it's like to not have a $52,000 job, but a $27,000 job and a $30,000 job, or our kids who recently graduated high school and are barely making more than minimum wage. And when we tell people that I tell people the majority of my district is poor and that they're living in the fastest growing city one of the fastest growing city in Texas, they still have a hard time believing, oh, no, Ramon, that's because all those Mexicans make all their money in cash. Y'all are just hiding it. It's because you don't pay your taxes. And when we talk to them about charter schools or our schools, they say those are your kids that have those problems. Those are not my kids that have those problems. That's because they represent Keller ISD and Colleyville ISD and different areas in Highland Park. And it's not a matter about Texas kids, which should be all of ours. When I made the comment and said, when will the Texas legislature step up and understand that these kids are our kids, not your and my kids? That crazy rich guy from West Texas, Michael Quinn Sullivan, said, Ramon, keep your hands off of my kids. Turned it into that pedophile looking situation where, oh, Ramon Romero wants to put his hands on your kids. Don't let him touch your kids. He wants your kids to be his kids. What does he mean by that? And then said that I would be left to raise all those that weren't aborted and that I'm the village idiot. Literally. If you don't believe me, look it up. That's exactly what he said. That I'm the village idiot representing those that weren't aborted. That's all of you. Is that ridiculous? So just like I was called a gang member, a Latin king, and all that crap during my election, keep in mind, that's what's going to happen to people right after me too. That's going to continue to happen until we do exactly what Joey says, which is truly organized, which is why you're here. And we organize at a level like we've never seen before. How many of you guys know that the only reason why I beat Lon Burnham is because seniors voted by mail? It's a fact. The only reason why I beat Lon Burnham is because we taught people over 65 that it's your right to vote by mail. No te vayas a la casilla donde te la van a hacer de pedo. Quédate en tu casita, así estoy bien. I'm going to vote right here. And our kids should be the ones sitting with grandma and grandpa making that happen. That's what I used to always say, but now I think I've changed my mind. I think our grandparents are going to be grabbing their kids and saying, vénganse para acá, because I'm filling out my ballot by mail early, 3 weeks in advance, so that you can go take your butt to the polls. So maybe I'm done with waiting for the youth generation, even though the youth generation right now, this next generation is incredible and doing some super cool things. Think about those kids in Florida. But it also doesn't mean that our older generations can wait for that to happen. We need to have serious café con leche, get together, bring 10 of your friends with their ballots and let's go sit down, because if just the seniors really did vote, there would be nobody that would beat us. And this council election, this bond election package that's coming up next week, look, I've dove way deep into that thing. And yes, Rockwood Golf Course is going to get a new clubhouse and we're going to get some streets done. But if you take that $300 million bond package and you break it down, you look where all that money's going. It's all going into North Fort Worth. So when I tell people, everybody's glad that Fort Worth's doing this great job, right? But the reality is, the reason why those bond packages, and y'all all know what a bond package is, right? The reason why those bond packages are so big is because our city's policies are so bad. If their policies were correct, to where our funds were there when we needed them, the bond packages wouldn't be billion-dollar bond packages. There's almost $400 million going into that bond package, but very little is going to come back into our neighborhoods. Very little. Count the streets, I dare you. I dare you to count the streets, how many of them are going to be in Southside and in Northside and in Poly and in Como. I dare you. You're going to take that and you're going to go, wow, there's only $25 million out of $400 million that's going to be spent in our neighborhoods. The rest of it's going to be for big streets up in North Fort Worth, Golden Triangle, Tarrant Parkway. Why not? That's where all the folks are moving to. And you know why that happened? Because we have not been organized. And they know that they can do whatever they want. And we're not going to be able to do anything about it. And that's why there's only one Latino on city council. There's no Latinos on the county commissioners, no congressman in Fort Worth, no congressman in Dallas, finally a potential congressman in Houston. Think about of the 9.8 million Latinos that Joey talked about, how many of them just live in Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth, and not one Latino in Congress. Wow. And you know what? It's not changing fast enough. Because next week, even though it's just a bond package program, this is what's really important. A lot of us aren't even going to go vote. Some of the people right in this room aren't even going to go vote. Because we don't use it as a practice. It should be a practice. It should be like every time there's an election, no matter what, guess whose name's going to be on it? Mine. And y'all should be saying mine. So every time there's an election, whose name's going to be on it? Mine. And your family. And that's where we have to start. And then just really just let it breathe to where it becomes our culture. So I'm gonna finish, and I know you guys don't want me to speak more, but I always tell this story about a very bitter situation in my election. Besides being called all these different names, besides people judging my character and so on and so forth, when I went down into South Fort Worth and was knocking on people's doors asking them to vote, and there was nothing but Latinos. And I looked at their voting history, and there was very little voting history, almost none. And I said, by golly, they've never ran into Ramon Romero before. I'm going to go tell them why they have to vote. So I went over there and knocked on their door. Guy comes out. No, ¿pa qué? Si mis hijos ya graduaron, they already graduated high school. I'm good. Look, I got a brand new Ford pickup. ¿Pa qué? My life is good. Go to the next guy. ¿Pa qué? Todos son ratas. You're just like the politicians in Mexico. You're no different. ¿Pa qué? Hey, next guy, mira, my life is good and I've never voted. Why do I need to start now? Nothing's gonna change. I go to this lady's house, her name was Maria Romero, same name as my mom. Knock on her door. She said, no te preocupes, mijo, I always vote. I looked at her and said, no, you don't. I said, no, you don't. You don't vote all the time. I got your history. And she said, oh, mijo, pero don't worry, this time I will. I'll vote for you. And I was like, ni porque eres el mismo nombre de mi mamá. So I go to the end of the block. And man, I promise you, I did not get a single yes, except for the lady that says she always votes. And I spent hours walking down that street. No one said yes. Everyone kept telling me, for what? That's our community. That's our community. That's our Latino citizens. So I go to the end of the block. Y estaba Morenito. And he was on one of those little things that they rent you at Walmart, little four-wheeler thing, right? I'm just kidding, the handicap things. And as I'm getting there to his street, he pulls up and he gets closer to the curb, and he said, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I'm here to ask you for your vote. He said, what are you running for? I said, I was running for city council at the time. I said, city council. And then he says, if I vote for you, you're going to fix my street? I said, nope. Because none of these Mexicans on this street vote. And then he says, they can't vote, they're all illegal. I said, no, they're not. They're all U.S. citizens. Look at them. Here they are. Here's a walking list. And he goes, I never knew that. And I said, sir, I need you to do me a favor, because that old black man had voted in every single election. Every single election. Not one. Every single city council election ever been, that old black guy had voted on. I said, sir, I need you to do me a favor. I said, I need you to ride that little scooter out here. I said, I need you to talk to every one of your people, because now you know they're not illegals. They're U.S. citizens. And I need you to tell them that on our street, we do two things. We mow our grass and we vote. Well, I lost that election by 78 votes. There was 78 votes on those blocks that I walked that day. But the reality is, that's our people. And that's the challenge for each and every single one of us, is that that's still our people. When we look at the data, we look at the numbers, we're just not voting. We have to understand that we have to break that mindset that we no longer are going to say pa qué. Because there's so many reasons to say por esto, y por tus hijos, y por los DACA, y por los Dreamers, y por nuestras calles, y por nuestras escuelas, and for every single thing that we can think of. Because it's all impacted by our votes. And if you don't believe it, look at that white judge that just got off for falsifying signatures when that black lady got 5 years. And tell me that that's the city, the county, the state that you want our kids to grow up in. Of course not. So if I sound a little angry, I'm not. I'm just passionate. I've been passionate my whole life. It's the only reason why I ran for office, because I'm passionate about change. and because I'm passionate about believing that somebody in our community is going to step up and say, this time it's going to be me. Because that's what happened to me. Domingo Garcia is about to talk, and I'm so glad he's running for LULAC president, going to go out there in Washington and just do the thing that he needs to do. Because I can tell you, had it not been for someone like Domingo, who always came whipping at me saying, you can't just be successful and think that you don't have to be responsible in your civic life. You have to be responsible. So that's why for me, Domingo is an incredible leader. And I hope he has all of your votes, because I know that if I had a vote, I would be voting for him. And I know that we need to make this room young. We got some young people in here. More LULAC members that are younger. Yeah, we hold it. But I just commend all of you guys, seriously, for being the root. I mean, you guys have been the ones that have been deep. Y'all are already dug deep. Big trees. But just keep planting seeds. So thank y'all for letting me come out and talk to y'all today. I appreciate it.
Okay, I want to make Ramon Romero aware, you know that.
Out of order, we have to wait for questions after the speakers, all the speakers.
This is very important, okay?
I understand, out of order. Okay, my next guest today is a candidate for state senate. Her name is Beverly Powell, and she is a 18-year trustee of Texas Wesleyan. She's a 12-year member of the. Well, I'll let her introduce herself. I don't want to butcher it up. Anyway, it's a great honor for her to be here.
I'm going to interject real quickly here. There's a reason why I wanted Ms. Powell here this morning to address y'all, to begin with. I don't know if y'all are familiar with who your senator in this area is.
I am.
Okay, well then, you know exactly where Ms. Burton stands. Okay? Y'all know the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, is not a fan of public education and is not a friend of school teachers, and certainly not a friend of our community. And his closest ally is your senator in this area. This is probably one of the most important races in the entire state of Texas in the Senate. This race right here in your county. Because by electing Ms. Powell, the Texas Senate will not be able to do away with the rules. We get this one senator in, we strike a blow at not only Dan Patrick and his agenda against public education, but we strike a blow at any anti-immigration bills that are going to be coming up in the Senate that can be blocked. I don't know how much more emphasis and more forceful I can say how important this vote right here is. And I told Ms. Powell, mira, not like that in Spanish. I told Ms. Powell, mira, hey, you got to be here. You don't hold titles. A lot of us don't hold titles. But I always tell people that the most important members of our community are those that don't hold titles, because you do the work in the community. You're the one that know those people that need to come out and vote. So I told her, mira, you got to meet not with me, not with Ramon Romero, with you. You're the one that elected him. Okay, it's people like you that elect me, and it'll be people like you that will elect her. She needs to know you. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, she is a board member of the Barstow ISD. She's been there, I believe, for 5 terms?
10 years.
10 years. She knows education in and out. She's been endorsed by the States Farming Association. She's been endorsed by the local congressman in the area as well. But you know as well as I do that those endorsements don't mean anything if we don't get votes out. Okay? And this is where you come in. You are the most important part of that process, is getting those votes out. And I'm sorry to be taking up your time, but I wanted to emphasize that. You know, one of the reasons why I came here today, I don't need to come here because of my good friends, okay, was to make sure that this would happen here today. Ms. Beverly Powell.
Joy, thank you for calling me this morning, or texting me this morning to invite me to
6
be
something.
here. And I'm very grateful. I'm always thrilled to follow my friend Ramon Romero. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you all even for just a moment to tell you a little bit about my race and a little bit about me. I'll tell you this, I've been a school board trustee down in Burleson ISD, like Joy said, for the last 10 years. I stepped down from that role in December so that I could run for this race to fight for public education. To fight for public education for your children and for your grandchildren, for my own grandchildren and my own great-grandchildren to come, for generations to come. Because we have an enormous battle to fight there to make sure that the people on the right don't get a foothold in vouchers. It's clear to me that we have to fight really hard to be sure that we keep all our money in public education. And not just what's there now, but that we expand the funding for public education and that we make sure it's equitable, that we have a complete reform of our public education funding system. That was my number one motive for running for office. I watched as a school board trustee what happened to the quality of our education, the programs that we lost during the time when our budget was chopped away so heavily back in the 2011 and 12. We lost programs like career technology programs that prepare young people for the workforce. We lost programs for Firefighters Academy, programs for cosmetology, programs in technology and healthcare opportunities for young people. So I want to be sure that moving forward, that we plow our money into our young people, that we make sure that we have public education be every single thing that it can possibly be. The second thing that I want to fight hard for is local control. We've seen an effort down in the legislature in Austin to take away the local control from our municipal governments. Well, I can tell you this, folks, that I want to get up every day and make sure that my toilet's flush. I want to make sure that I have clean running water and that we have parks and recreation facilities, that we have ballparks for our children to play in their little league t-ball efforts, that they get to play all of the games that they want to play in public parks. I want to make sure that when we have developments that occur in our communities, that there are sustainable, walkable developments. And folks, that doesn't happen in Austin, Texas. It happens right here in Fort Worth. It happens right here in Arlington, right here in Burleson, Everman, Crowley. The day that we send those decisions off to Austin to be made is a sad day for all of us. So that is the second initiative I want to fight for. And I want to do that partly because that's where economic development in our communities happens, is at the very local level. I will tell you this, in contrast to my opponent, Connie Burton, I believe in a strong economic development policy for your communities. She believes that we shouldn't have economic development initiatives, that we shouldn't worry about the creation of new jobs, that we should leave that up to private industry. Well, folks, I think we have to take advantage of all the opportunities that exist for us to create strong economic development climates for our community, that we take advantage of things like the Special Events Fund to help fund those events in downtown Fort Worth and over in Arlington, so we can create great jobs, we create commerce and tax revenue from folks that don't even live here in our part of the world. So I'm keyed in on making sure that we create a strong economic development in our communities because it creates great jobs to sustain our families. And isn't that really what we're all about, is making sure that everyone has the opportunity for a great job Everyone has the opportunity to go to college if they want to go to college. Everyone has the opportunity for workforce training if they don't want to go to college, but they need to be trained for a new job. Shouldn't we do everything we can to make that affordable and accessible? I've been doing that for 20 years at Texas Wesleyan University. I've been a trustee on that board for the last 18 years, and I've been chairman of that board for the last 3 years. If you take a drive down Rosedale Street today, you will see the fruits of my efforts over the last 5 years as vice chairman and chairman of that board. We created a public-private partnership to do $30 million worth of street improvements and improvements to the Texas Wesleyan University and commercial development on those storefronts along Rosedale. You've seen that neighborhood change over 5 years in a way that is remarkable. Folks, those things don't happen by accident. They happen because groups of people get together and create wonderful partnerships that pull together the resources from the city, from the county, from the university, and from the federal government to be sure that we can plow $30 million into the redevelopment of our community. Now, the last thing I'll tell you is about my efforts to be sure that we provide the kids where I live with the opportunity for a college education. About 12 years ago, I sat in a room like this with just about this many tables and just about this many people. And we asked ourselves that day what was the single most important thing that we could do to improve the lives of the people who lived in Burleson, and what was the single most important thing that we could do that would change the trajectory of the lives of young people in Burleson. We talked among ourselves that day, and we came up with one central idea, and that was that we could bring a college to Burleson, and that we could raise scholarship funds to be sure that we offered every kindergarten student who walked into a school in our community the opportunity to go to college someday. So we set about pulling together a coalition of teachers and school administrators, of city leaders and city employees, of business leaders in our community, and over the last 10 years, we have raised $1.4 million to put kids into school. We brought a college to our community, and we have educated over, I think it's over 1,200 students with $1.4 million in 10 years. And I will say in my last comment to you that in that 10 years, we have never turned down a child. We have given every student that applied a scholarship. So thank you for the opportunity to visit with you today. I'm going to leave some of my information here so that you will have it. And I'd like to, in my closing statement to you, tell you all that this week I received an endorsement that was one of the sweetest, most heartfelt endorsements of my campaign, and that is I received the endorsement of the Latina list. So thank you so much.